And so that is exactly what I'm talking about today, how to unfuck your recovery system. Now, I know that is a bit of vulgar language, right? But it's the truth. When it comes to sleep, people have such a horrible recovery system, right? Maybe you're watching this 40 years old, an executive business owner, a very demanding work schedule in general, no matter what your role is. You have a family, you have a spouse, you have a lot of responsibilities, overall very busy. And so you're doing all of these things every single day. You're trying to take the best care of your health that you can, going to the gym, not eating so much fast food, right? But then the last thing people think about in order to improve their health and in order to actually enhance the success that they're achieving in their life in every aspect, the last thing people think about is sleep. Everyone knows, yeah, okay, 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night laying in my bed is important, but that's all the brain power they put to it. They don't think about, obviously we're going to get into all of this, but they don't prioritize how important sleep is. And I know for me, I never did. Up until about 2 years ago, I was the same way. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Let's try and go to bed at 12 p.m., midnight, and then wake up at 8, and that's a full 8 hours of sleep. That's all I thought about sleep. And it wasn't until I truly dialed things in and optimized my recovery system and my sleep architecture to where I started getting better results. First off, with my health, with my physique. I started to grow muscle a little bit faster. I started to gain strength every single week a little bit faster. I had more energy. I was feeling obviously more recovered. My elbows, my wrists, my knees, my hips, my ankles, my joints were feeling more fortified and more stable, stronger, right? And of course, that's just the physique wise. Like I said, that's not the only thing when it comes to sleep. It affects every other aspect of your life in such a positive way. And again, not everyone is thinking about sleep like they need to and prioritizing it at the level that they should be. The first action people usually take is, adding things. I need to add in this crazy, extensive morning and nightly routine every single day so I can start dialing in my sleep. And I mean, yes, that's part of it. And that's, again, what we'll talk about a little bit, but that's not necessarily the best thing to do, right? And that is kind of going along with that first element that I have for you today, which is the elimination phase. You don't want to start adding things on what you're already doing on top of an already busy schedule that you already have. You want to make sure that you eliminate the things that you may be doing wrong to get yourself in that perfect position to then start, which is the next element, the rebuilding phase. Start rebuilding this sleep architecture. And then, of course, phase 3, a full optimization. So I hope you can see all of these 3 phases. You should be able to, right, on the whiteboard. But that's what I have for you today, and that's what I'm going over. 1, eliminate. 2, rebuild. And 3, fully optimize and create the new you. This is just what you do now. Eventually, you're not even going to think about it, and you're going to be getting the best quality of sleep you ever have. Again, not just the quantity, 7 to 8 hours, and it's going to affect positively every other area of your life, enhancing the success and actually becoming that man that you know you are capable of becoming. So just really quickly, again, before I get into everything, I just want to quickly explain that I genuinely believe that sleep is the most important part of great health, high performance, and longevity. I truly believe that, right? And again, that's the last thing that people are thinking about when it comes to their health is sleep. They're thinking about the gym first. That's always the first one. When I think about New Year's Eve, New Year's resolutions, everybody, I need to go to the gym more often to lose this belly fat. That's the first action. And then they think, okay, I need to cut out fast food. I need to eat more protein, drink more water. Sleep comes at the end in terms of everybody's priority list when it should be at the top. When you dial in sleep, which is exactly what I did and exactly what I do with my clients now in Legacy Fitness Coaching, we dial in the sleep first, the core of great health, and then from there building that foundation, then the gym can actually work because you're recovering from your workouts. Nutrition can actually work because you're fully absorbing those nutrients. It's not just going through you, causing any gut microbiome issues, bloating, digestion issues, everything like that. Again, it all starts with sleep. And so I've had enough of explaining to you how important sleep is. Let's actually get into breaking sleep down and how to fix your recovery system. So first off, element number 1, the elimination phase. Like I said, this has to be first because you can't rebuild if you don't eliminate first. You have to know what things you're actually currently doing wrong that are affecting your sleep quality at night. And so the first one, as you can obviously read here, is late caffeine. I think this is the biggest one, especially for business owners, especially for adults in general, men or women. Caffeine is a big one. I think it's the statistically most used drug in the world, right? It's the most addicting, for example. And it's not just coffee in the morning, it's energy drinks, it's all those stimulants and everything like that. For me, I've never been a coffee drinker. And I've never had an energy drink in my life, not even a sip, right? And that's just because that's a whole nother video, right? That's a whole nother video. But when it comes to late caffeine and when it comes to caffeine in general, it stays in your system for up to 8 to potentially 10 hours, right? And so if you think about it, you have a coffee in the morning, you have a coffee, midday, maybe with lunch a little bit, right? Because you have a busy work day. And then, you still need to work until the end of the workday. So maybe another one at 2 p.m., right? And that's the worst thing you can possibly do for your sleep that night and moving forward, because it can stay up in your system for up to 8 to 10 hours. So 2 p.m., you had your last coffee, that stays in your system up to potentially midnight. You know what I mean? At least 10 p.m. when you're trying to go to sleep, when you're trying to wind down, get some good sleep so that you have energy the next day. Caffeine is still in your system, keeping you amped, keeping you alert, exactly what it's supposed to do. But I want you to know, caffeine is not bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just that so many people are poorly consuming it, poorly timed, for example, affecting so many things down the line. So that's the first one here, right? Late caffeine, you want to start drinking it obviously earlier in the day, in the morning, and then stop it, cap it at about noon. The earlier the better, right? But at least and latest noon, so that it doesn't start affecting your sleep. Next here, we've got stacked cortisol. Now, what goes in this stacked cortisol element of the first elimination phase is, say for example, you have a very hard work day, right? And then after that, it's about 6 p.m. You're like, damn, I still haven't got my workout in yet. So then you go to the gym and you hit a 2-hour workout. You were already stressed from work, a hard work day. And then you stress your system even more with a hard workout, thinking that you're doing good for your health, building muscle, when in reality, you're just breaking your muscle tissue down and hitting your nervous system even harder after that hard work day. So stacked cortisol, right? A late workout. This is another very important thing that you want to cut out of your daily routine and how you're taking care of your health. Those late workouts, these are killing your sleep performance because you're not able to wind down. You're going to start to actually fall asleep at 2 a.m. because that's finally enough time to where your nervous system could calm down after the workday, after taking care of responsibilities, after doing your workout. And then you finally fall asleep. So we've got late caffeine so far. We've got stacked cortisol, making sure that you stop working out so late at night, right, affecting your sleep. Next, we've got alcohol. A lot of people know it, right? Alcohol puts me to sleep. It's a natural sedative. It's a natural nervous system depressant, for example, right? And people thinking about those nightcaps, and again, people think that it's allowing you to get better sleep at night because it puts you to sleep fast, when in reality, yes, you're unconscious, you're sleeping in your bed, but you're really not getting the quality of sleep that you need. It's very fragmented sleep. You do not enter any deep stages of sleep where repair actually happens mentally and physically. And so again, it may put you to sleep very easily, but seriously, this is honestly, this should be number one. Alcohol is the worst when it comes to sleep. Alcohol is the worst when it comes to your overall health improvement. It's just poison. All right. Again, I've never drank it either. I'm 21 years old. My 21st birthday, everyone's like, oh my God, Ben, let's drink. No, it's bigger than that. All right. And the last one here that we've got in the elimination phase, and obviously these are only 4 examples that I have in the elimination phase. There are a couple more, but again, in my opinion, as a fitness and health optimization specialist, I believe that these would be the most important ones to actually start prioritizing to eliminate first and actually start getting the better results before that rebuild phase. So fourth here, we've got a work cutoff time. I can't tell you how important this one is. I didn't start doing this as an entrepreneur myself until about a year and a half into my business, right, and running my company. And so it's important because, you think about it, you have those hard work days and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be inevitable now that you just stop working at 10 p.m. every night, but still you want to be thinking about it. Have a work cutoff time to where every day, you try to go to bed at 11 p.m. And so a work cutoff time, a good work cutoff time is about 90 minutes before that sleep onset time. So 11 p.m. I want to go to sleep. I'm going to stop work at 9:30, because otherwise, if you don't close the laptop, you don't go on do not disturb mode on your phone, you don't stop answering text messages, emails, Slack messages, your brain's going to still be stuck in work mode, and you're not going to be able to, again, fall asleep. You're just going to be thinking about work when your head hits that pillow, and you're not going to get the sleep that you need So again, the most important four, in my opinion, in the elimination phase. And this is where it starts. You have to stop what you're doing wrong first before you can rebuild. And once you have this, once you have just calmed down and simplified what you're already doing, now we need to enter the rebuild phase. So let's start it off. I've got three elements in this rebuild phase, and it's very, very simple. All right. The first one here is just a wind down window. And this one's very important. When it comes to sleep, right, pretty much what I just talked about, a work cutoff time is going to be part of that wind down routine. But overall, you want to make sure that you're down regulating your nervous system, your mind, your body, relaxing, stretching, breath work, sauna, making sure that you're actually able to fall asleep when you get in bed rather than just being amped up, hoping that when your head hits that pillow, you can just fall asleep like a superpower. I know some people can do that. I, for one, cannot. My mind just races. I can't turn it off. And so I need to make sure that I can calm down my mind and my body, relax everything first, and then actually be able to fall asleep. So a wind down routine, that is that first part of the rebuild phase that you need to start implementing. And again, when it comes to my clients, for example, and myself, it's not going to be some extensive thing. You have that work cutoff time that technically starts your wind down routine, in my opinion. And then after that, for an hour and a half up until bedtime, you're doing all these little tasks. It's not like that, because that's even then going to stress you out. Even then, that's going to get, overbearing as time goes on. You want it to be very simple. You want it to be a wind down process that actually helps you down regulate. And so it's just, my point is with this, it's simple, actionable steps in a sequence that help you slow down, and then when you hit the pillow, you can fall asleep. That's that first piece, rebuild phase, to fix your recovery architecture and recovery system. Next, we have to set your circadian rhythm. So if you're not familiar, which I bet you are, circadian rhythm is pretty much just your internal clock in your brain, right? And it really has a lot to do with the sun outside, for example, right? People with night shifts for work, for example, their circadian rhythm is totally off, which is going to affect their mood, most importantly, their energy levels, and their overall performance mentally and physically. Your circadian rhythm, that internal clock, is so important for you to get into the rhythm of things during the day, and then obviously help you wind down properly at night. And so these two are starting to go into each other. And that's what you'll see a lot with health and fitness. Everything starts piling on each other positively, right? And it's just a cycle that eventually is auto-regulating itself, but the start is always the hardest part. And so this rebuild phase is where it starts to get that ball rolling down the hill. But circadian rhythm, with this one, a really big piece is just getting morning sunlight. After you wake up, you first want to be making sure that you're drinking water, rehydrating properly. You just were sleeping for up to 8 hours, right? With no consumption of food or water. You want to rehydrate first. But again, that morning sunlight, at least within, 30 minutes of waking up, you want to expose your eyes to that sunlight. And that's going to tell your brain, okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to be alert. That's also going to set your cortisol and your stress rhythm for the day, rather than it being up and down constantly. You want it to be, of course, like that, but you only want it to be up when you need your cortisol to be high. So that's going to set your circadian rhythm, your cortisol rhythm. I think the most important here, there are some elements with setting your circadian rhythm, but the biggest one is just, being in tune with the sun. So when the sun goes down at night, if you have a proper circadian and cortisol rhythm, that sun goes down, your eyes and your brain acknowledge that, right? And then melatonin starts being produced from your pineal gland in your brain. That's a whole nother video as well. But that's how you start it. Then you're waking up and going to sleep around the same time every single day. That's also another element that you need to make sure you add in. But setting that circadian rhythm, I think, is definitely one of the most important pieces for a rebuild phase to start adopting into your recovery system every single day. Circadian rhythm, going to sleep, waking up at the same time, morning sunlight, obviously water intake, like I said, part of your morning routine. Lastly here that I want to talk about in the rebuild phase is fuel tank balance. So the balance between overeating and undereating before sleep, because there is possibility for both. And I've seen both situations. My whole life, I was overeating, actually, carbohydrates, a lot of fats. I had no idea. All my life, I've just wanted to grow muscle mass. I just wanted to grow bigger. And I knew in order to do that, I need to eat a lot of food, right? And so every night before bed, I'd have a protein shake with a glass of milk and 2 pieces of bread with peanut butter slapped on top of it every single night for probably 5 or 6 years. And that obviously helped me, but I had no idea what that was doing to my sleep performance. I was just focused on getting 7 to 8 hours, not knowing what actually happens based on what I'm eating before I hit that pillow at night. So overeating versus undereating. You want to make sure that you're not eating, within about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. So if you want to sleep at 11 p.m., you got to stop eating around 8, preferably maybe 9 p.m. For me, it's 9 p.m., right? 2 hours before I try and go to sleep. But that's just big meals. So your last big meal of the day also shouldn't contain a lot of fats, should be relatively good carbs, some good protein, right, to end out the day. And that's my last big meal, 2 hours before bed. But that's not it for me. I like to have a snack as well. And so for me, that little snack is just going to be a rice cake, a little bit of peanut butter, so a little bit of fats, right? 5 to 10 grams of fat is not going to do too much, a little bit of carbohydrates, and that holds me over, right? Because again, you don't want to overeat, but you also don't want to undereat before bed. If you undereat, you're not going to have enough glycogen, stored energy in your system to keep your brain functioning, to obviously have these processes that happen overnight be able to happen without any energy. You're going to wake up because your liver is going to have to make some sort of energy in glycosis and ketones, right? It's going to have to make energy because you haven't consumed any in hours, and that's actually going to wake you up, all right? Because your cortisol is going to rise from that. So again, I'm going to say it again, that's a whole nother video. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but I'm just giving you the overview of actually how to do it, not why it works. But the fuel take balance, overeating, undereating, you want to make sure that those are dialed in, because both can actually affect your sleep almost in the same way. So it has to be right in that balance so that you can get the quality nutrients you need without overdoing it. That is the rebuild phase. I wish you were here with me right now so I could, ask you, do you have any questions? I feel like I'm just blabbering, but that's what we do here, right? Filming with the camera, giving you guys all this great information. So if you have any questions, as always, make sure to leave them in the comments, right? And if you're interested in kind of what is going on here with the elimination phase, the rebuild, and obviously we got to still get to the optimization phase, but if you're interested in having me build out a personalized sleep recovery architecture system for you, if you're a business owner, executive, demanding work schedule, right? You don't really have time to think of stuff like this and create it for yourself. And so that's exactly what I do for my clients, right? Optimize those systems and actually get them the sleep they need and the recovery and overall health systems dialed in personally for them. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to head over to that link in the description of this video. It's going to be a call link to actually talk with me directly. But eliminate, rebuild, last but not least, I hope you can see it, the optimization phase, okay? And so what we're going to start with in terms of optimizing, after you've locked in a proper wind down window and proper wind down routine, a proper morning routine, setting your circadian rhythm, understanding how nutrition affects sleep, and having a proper system with that, now we get to the first piece of optimizing this entire system, creating it a lifestyle for yourself, just the new you and what you do for your sleep and your health, is HRV feedback, okay? So HRV is a huge health metric and central nervous system metric. And so obviously we can't even talk about this if you don't know what it is, where it's coming from, how to track it. For me, I track with Whoop. All right. You can use Apple Watch. You can use Garmin. You can use Oura Ring. I know there's a couple others out there. Hume. There's a lot of sleep and health trackers. For me, I use Whoop. And obviously, it tells me my HRV every single morning. And when your HRV is low, right, that tells you that your stress is very high. Okay. But when your HRV is higher, for example, that tells you that your stress is low. That tells you that your nervous system can handle more load. All right. And so HRV is just a really big one in terms of sleep and performance and overall what your nervous system can handle. We'll talk a little bit more about auto regulation of that, right? Actually, we'll talk about it now. HRV. If you find your baseline HRV, you've been wearing it for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and you know what your average HRV is, and you wake up one day and your watch, your tracker says, yo, your HRV is low today. All right. That tells you of what you can do today and what your body can actually handle. And so it's not about just saying, oh, low HRV, whatever that means, right? It's listening to your body and what it's telling you. A low HRV means you can handle less stress today. So you have a work day, you've got to get that done. But maybe today's not the day to go for a super hard, heavy leg day because your body's not really going to be able to handle it. It's not going to be able to adapt from it. And so you're just wasting your time, but also doing more harm than good, adding more stress onto an already stressed system. So that's that first piece, auto-regulation, listening to HRV, a very important metric. But what goes along with that next is deep and REM sleep. This is the bread and butter of sleep performance optimization right here. Deep sleep and REM sleep. All right. You have to know what you are actually slacking on in terms of these two metrics. Maybe your REM sleep is dialed in, but deep sleep is a little bit lacking. And when it comes to these two metrics, deep sleep is a metric that kind of tracks how well your body is recovering physically, right? Your joints, your muscles, everything, reparation there. Next is REM, and REM sleep is more for that cognitive repair, all right, and restoration. And so depending on what you need, that's exactly what you need to focus on. But when it comes to both of these, you want to aim for about 1.5, 2 hours of each every single night. And I bet you if you start tracking your sleep and look at your deep and REM, you're not even close to those numbers because it's hard. You have to intentionally have some systems behind it to get those quality numbers and quality sleep. So HRV, very important metric. Deep and REM sleep, two other very crucial important metrics when it comes to knowing what you're doing and if it's actually working or not. If your deep sleep, like I said, is lacking, or REM, one or the other or both, you're going to know what lever you need to pull next in terms of your wind down, in terms of circadian rhythm, morning routine, eating too much, eating too little. You're going to know what lever to pull, what actually to fix to get the best results, rather than just saying, I think I go to bed and wake up at the same time. I think I'm getting 7 to 8 hours. I think, I've set my circadian rhythm. It's about knowing what you're doing, actually tracking the data, knowing what your body is telling you, and then being able to adjust what you're doing to get the next and best level results. Those are the two, the three, I guess, technically, HRV, deep and REM sleep. And lastly, or third, I guess here, is travel. When it comes to sleep, when it comes to travel, a lot of people, it gets destroyed. They go on vacation, business trips, whatever it may be for travel. Sleep, again, is that thing people don't think about. They like the hotel bed, but they really don't try and optimize sleep. So when it comes to traveling and sleep, all you really have to do is just keep it as simple as possible. Lock in and dial in some of these routines for yourself, the elimination phase. Remember these things so that when you do go out traveling, you kind of have this mini routine that you can follow away from your own home and regular routine every day and still get some good results with your sleep performance, even while traveling. And so that, again, it's not some super secret sauce, some super secret thing that you have to know about when it comes to traveling and getting good sleep. It's just about having a little bit of intention and a little bit of a system to follow while you're traveling, again, to get the best results. Sleep hygiene for optimization of this sleep architecture. This is just basically small things like, the overhead lights, not having bright overhead lights after the sun goes down every day, because that's going to suppress the process of melatonin releasing in your brain, allowing you to fall asleep and feel tired. And so, not having those bright lights. For me, when that sun goes down, I still like to work because the sun goes down at like 8 and I work a little bit longer. I turn on red lights and look that up. That's a little bit of another topic to talk about, but red light doesn't have any blue light in it. So you're still able to see throughout the house, but it's not going to affect that process of releasing melatonin. So that's what I do, right? A little bit of a hack right there. Another one is, making sure you're not drinking too much water before bed, going along with not eating too much before bed, because then you're going to have to wake up and go to the bathroom, right? Screens and music and mental stimulation things, right? Again, it's about proper wind down, sleep hygiene, having a routine where you brush the teeth, go shower, have some stretching, watch a show until it's about 30 minutes before bed, then cut off the screens. Just about sleep hygiene, small things like that, setting the temperature in the room to make sure that it's about 60, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Small things like that do make the difference and do help fully optimize the system, of course, after rebuilding first and not trying to optimize a system that isn't even built. So that's how the optimization works, and obviously why it's step number 3. But lastly here, and obviously last on this whole damn list when it comes to fixing your sleep, is supplements. Supplements, right? They are important and they can play a good role, but not by themselves. This should not be step number 1 for you, right? I'm going to tell you some 2 really, really good supplements here in a second for sleep, but I don't want you to just implement those right on day 1. I want to make sure you have everything else locked in and dialed down before you say, okay, now let's optimize using some sleep supplements to get just, maybe 10% better sleep performance, because the other 90% is going to come from everything else that we've talked about. But the two supplements that I have seen some amazing results from, first one is L-theanine, really helps with stress reduction, and the other is magnesium glycinate. So both of these really help me relax, wind down. Literally relax my muscles. That's what magnesium glycinate helps with. And just the overall stress as an entrepreneur myself, very busy as a student athlete in college, a lot of things on my plate, and sleep just has to be dialed in. Supplements can make that difference. But again, as you can see, it's very last on this list today, because it only works if you have everything else locked in for yourself. So that was a lot to talk about. Like I said, if you have any questions, you let me know specifically on anything. But this is exactly how to do it right here. You've got that elimination, you've got that rebuild, and you've got the last but not least optimization phase. You want to make sure that you can follow these, eventually create a whole lifestyle for yourself to lock in this sleep performance and actually get the best results. Again, everything starts from your sleep, how you can recover, knowing what your body is telling you, so that okay, I can't really train overbearingly hard today, because that's just going to do more harm than good. And so then you can then structure your training system, what you need to eat the next day, maybe a little bit more carbs, help your nervous system recover, right? A little bit more protein, a little bit more fats to regulate your hormones, to absorb more nutrients. Again, you have to know what is actually working and what doesn't work. And how you do that is you track and you lock in the sleep first. So like always, if you have any questions, like I said, drop them in the comments. DM me on Instagram. Maybe you have a couple questions there that you want to ask me. But I enjoyed this video just because how passionate I am about health and fitness. And I know that in order to fully optimize your overall health, get the best results, enhance the performance, the success that you see everywhere in your life, it all starts with how you recover and your sleep system. Again, if you are interested in having this sleep and recovery architecture system directly and personally built for you, right, go to that link in the description of this video. That's going to be a call link to call with me personally, and we figure out what your sleep performance leaks are, and then actually start the implementation, the rebuild, and the optimization processes. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Hit that link in the description. I'll see you in the next video.